You know those days when you feel like this just really sucks? You're sad, you're angry, you're lonely, you're fearful, and the list of undesirable emotions becomes absolutely endless. We're often quick to want to get rid of these emotions because they're uncomfortable and really they just don't feel good. They're not enjoyable. But what if these kinds of emotions are the very thing that you need to feel right now? On today's episode, we are going to be addressing those pesky little emotions and many other not so pesky ones to observe how your emotions are affecting your physical world. Life is full of difficult questions, experiences that leave you asking more questions and offer very little direction. You need a way to tap into your potential and have a roadmap to become the best version of yourself. Welcome to the Neuro Coach Podcast. My name is Trisha Peterson, and this is where we go below the surface into your subconscious to rewire the brain and finally align yourself with the person that God designed you to be. The only thing that you're missing right now is an internal connection between today's thoughts and tomorrow's outcome. So get excited. This one simple question could help you find the missing piece that you always knew you needed, but didn't know how to find. I have worked with enough people at this point in my coaching career to know that there are a lot of people who struggle with their emotions. Most of them struggle with them because they don't know how to identify them. They don't know how to say, this is exactly what's going on. We know the overall arching, like happy or sad or frustrated emotions. I even did a Google search. And there are so many articles out there that are like the top 8 emotions, or you only need these 5 emotions. And we like to clump all of our emotions into these overarching fear, loneliness, or sadness. We like to say, oh yeah, that fits in there, right? But we don't understand our emotions. And because we don't understand them, we start to fear our emotions and we try to just, I'm going to push that aside. Or an emotion will pop up and we'll say, yeah, I'm not going to deal with that one because we don't know how to manage our emotions. And so most people tend to be afraid of their emotions. And we feel like we're trying to decipher this code, but we have no idea what the key even looks like. And so we're just kind of throwing things out, and it's so hard when there's not a roadmap to kind of follow. So that's why we're going to be talking about emotions today, because emotions do not need to be taboo. Once you understand why these emotions are coming up, what's the purpose of these emotions, then we're going to be able to better manage all of these emotions. So before we get too far into it, I want to teach you the neuroscience of emotions, because it's so fascinating to see how all of this plays into your physical body. Now, we can't pinpoint our emotions, meaning our emotions are not a physical, tangible thing that you can say, oh, look, here is happiness. It doesn't happen that way. Emotions are not tangible. But when we talk about the neuroscience behind it, we can start to see how it affects our body, and it starts to put a little bit more understanding behind them. So emotions oftentimes come from a network of interconnected structures in your brain from a system called the limbic system. Now, the limbic system is located right above your brainstem and right below the cerebral cortex. And so it's right there deep, deep, deep inside your brain. So many things get wrapped around this limbic system just because of where it sits. It's often associated with memory and emotion, which I find super fascinating because you don't often, if ever, remember an experience that happened that doesn't have an emotional charge. If I were to ask you what happened in 3rd grade on your 112th day of school, what happened? on that day. You most likely are not even going to remember because it was just a normal day. It was a long time ago, and we don't know what happened. We don't even know, like, why was that day significant? We don't remember those everyday details because there's not a strong emotional charge. Now, if I were to ask you about your very favorite Christmas, or if I were to ask you about the first time that you were able to participate in that thing that you absolutely love, you're going to remember those events in your life far more than just a random day because there was an emotional charge to it. Now, emotional charges can be positive and negative. So you're also going to remember that day that this experience rocked your world and you didn't know if you were going to make it through. You're going to remember those experiences where your brain is saying, oh my gosh, we want more of this. And you're also going to remember those experiences that say, I don't know if I want to go through any of that again. That was really, really hard. And so your brain is going to remember things better because of the emotion that is behind it, because memory and emotion go hand in hand. So if you think about maybe somebody that was really special to you, you may not remember exactly what they said to you. You're not going to remember word for word the conversation, but you will remember how they made you feel. It's the emotional charge that happens in our memories that makes our brain say, oh, I got to store that one away. That is a good one that I want to keep. And so when we are talking about feelings in the equation, so as we've been diving into the equation a little bit more, you'll remember that our experience is always neutral. It's not good. It's not bad. It's neutral. It's just what is going on. Then in the last episode, we talked about our thoughts and how our thoughts play into all of that. Well, your thoughts are then going to lead to a feeling. Okay. These feelings are simply just an indication of how you are interacting with that neutral experience. If it's positive or negative and that emotional charge is really high, then your brain is going to say, I've got to remember this. So I can either bring more of it into my life or I can try to avoid it at all costs. Anytime these high intensity emotions happen in your life, your brain is going to help you remember those things. So our feelings are simply just an indication of how we are interacting with that experience. So of course, our emotions are going to influence the perception that we have over this experience. It is in the feelings that we're going to start to say, oh, that is good, that is bad, because the feelings are what interprets how we're interacting with those things. So why do we even have emotions? Yes, it's going to help us remember. It's going to help us be able to either bring more things into our life or not want to have them in our life. But why? What's the purpose of these emotions? Well, there are three components that I want you to remember when we are talking about emotions. The first component is a subjective component. Now, a subjective component is going to be how you are experiencing those emotions. Okay. You can have one person who is feeling heartbreak and then right next to them have somebody else who's experiencing heartbreak, and how they interpret those things are going to be different based on their past experience, based on the things that are going on around them and the parts of that experience that is making that heartbreak intensity increase. So how you are experiencing those emotions. Then the second one is a psychological component. This is how your body is reacting to these emotions. Okay, so we have these emotions that come up. Your body's going to have a natural reaction when you feel that. Someone who is experiencing heartbreak, maybe they go into a sad state and they just sit in their room and they cry and they cannot pull themselves out of it, and everything revolves around this heartbreak. But this other person, in our other example, maybe their body's reaction to heartbreak is in anger. And so they go out, and because they are so heartbroken, they're going out and punching walls, and they're starting fights at school, or they're picking fights at the bar, or wherever they're going. They're trying to get this anger out because they're so heartbroken. Now, the third component is an expressive component. This is how you behave in response to those emotions. Okay. So we talked about the second person, how they're going out, they're intentionally going out and putting themselves in places where they can justify their anger, because the heartbreak is causing anger in their body, which is then they need to go out and act on those things. You're going to see these three components of emotion play out as you are watching your own emotions, as you're trying to identify them and help you figure out what's going on. You will see the subjective, the psychological, and the expressive components in every action that you take. And it's all coming down and being stemmed from this one emotion. Okay. The Bible in Romans 12, it talks about how we mourn with those who mourn. When we experience emotion, how your body reacts to them, you have a choice to step up and say, I need to connect with other people. Now, that connection is not always positive. In our example, the one who got angry, they were creating a connection with other people. It's just not a good connection. The other person who is sitting in their room feeling that heartbreak, they may have a urge to say, I need to call a friend, or I need to call my mom, or I need to call somebody to just help me process all of these things that I'm going through. You have an opportunity when you see somebody who has a high intensity in their emotions to reach out and mourn with them. It is through our emotions that we are able to connect with other people. Your emotions can be extremely powerful. You may not know exactly their experience or exactly what they are going through, but when we start to look at the emotions of what they're feeling, you can find some area in your life where you have gone through something similar, where you have felt something similar. Yes, the experience may be slightly different, but you have an opportunity to connect with people because of the emotions that you feel. You can share stories. You can share your experience because you're able to connect on an emotional level, and it's extremely powerful. This also comes down to, do you know how to name it? So yes, we talked about how Google is going to tell you these are the 8 emotions that you need to feel. You only need to have these 8 emotions. Everything can be brought down through those emotions. While it is true, we can lump emotions together in like a parent emotion. So under fear, we're going to have aggression and outbursts, and we're going to have outraged and all of these things. When you know specifically what to call the emotion, and you get extremely specific on those things, don't just call it fear, because fear can go a lot of different ways. Once you know how to specifically name exactly what you're feeling, then that helps us to be able to start to release some of those emotions, because that starts to ring true to us. So as we start to generalize these emotions, because that happens so often, that's like me going around and saying, if your name starts with a J, I'm just going to call you Jane. It's close enough. You start with a J, your name's going to be Jane. Your name starts with an E, so everyone's going to be Emma. Everyone's going to be Emma, because that's just so much easier for me to remember. Then I'll really only have to remember 26 names. And there's not that many names that start with Q or Y or Z. All of these letters, like I can just throw those out. We can just, they're not that important. We'll just drop them. If your name starts with a T, You are going to be Trisha every time. How would you feel if someone went around calling you the wrong name just because you start with the same letter? It sounds so absurd. Like, of course, they have a specific identity. They want to be called by their name. Your emotions are the same way. So as we start to get in a little bit deeper into each of these emotions and start to learn the name. Now, the hardest thing about this is there's a lot of emotions out there that we may not be able to always have this list of 700 emotions that we're just going to pull out all the time. But there are things that can help you with that. So if we can start to say, this is similar to feeling sad. Sad's not quite right, but maybe that's close. And then we start to get in a little bit more, and maybe you start to see, oh, I'm feeling more apathy, or I'm forlorn, or all of these other more explicit names. It helps us to be able to see that I can actually manage those things better than I thought that I could. I know what I'm dealing with specifically. And we can start to get in a little bit deeper into all of these different things to help us be able to see that I'm a little bit more complex than just feeling sad. There's something a little bit deeper here, and we're able to manage them better because we know specifically what to call it. So you can see how once we have a thought and it turns into this emotion, and we start to build the intensity of our emotions, how that plays into everything that we do. So if you would like a list of emotions in the equation guide that I have put together for you, so you can see all of this visually, I have put together a list of emotions. They are broken down into a parent emotion. And so if you know a general idea, like I think this is what I'm feeling, then you can just go through and read a list of emotions and see what feels right to you. What feels like, yeah, that's going to be it. Now, as you're looking at this list, it's also important to note that there's not a right or wrong. If you don't know, like, is it that emotion or this emotion? Like, they kind of feel similar to me. Know that you're not going to be wrong if you call it by the wrong name. We want to get you close, but we want to help you be able to be specific as you are trying to figure out the emotions and the things that are going on in your head so that we can start to say, that emotion specifically right there is on a subjective level. Okay, I know that that's what I'm experiencing, but I haven't gone deep enough into that emotion for it to be psychological. My body's not reacting to it. It's just there. Or maybe your body is reacting to it, but you're not expressing it yet. You haven't acted on it yet. When you know those three components and you have the right name of the emotion, you can start to see how that's going to then play into your beliefs and your behaviors and all of the things that we're going to be talking about on the next episodes. So if you would like to download this guide so that you can see all of these things, put it all into perspective, get this list of emotions, go to neurocoachpodcast.com/episode 4, and I will help you get to a place where you can start to manage your emotions a little bit better. You can see how it all plays in together in the box, and you can really start to make a difference in your life because you know exactly what you're dealing with. Don't you love the power of your brain? It is so amazing. If you found this episode helpful in any way, send us a review, give it some stars, and cheer us on. I make a point to read everything that you sent in because, believe it or not, your words are powerful and they make a difference, not only to me, but anyone who stumbles upon this podcast. So thank you for your love and encouragement. And in case you forgot, you're more exceptional than you think. You're stronger and braver than you allow yourself to feel. And what you are contributing right now means more to the people in your life than you will ever know. Today's going to be a great day.
So thanks for diving in deep with me, and I'll see you next week on another amazing episode of the Neuro Coach Podcast.